Hello, music fans. You're watching Death by Unicorn, where I talk about metal, rock, and prog music. And this is What's New 2024. I'm going to talk about 6 new albums that came out on September 20th, 2024, give my first impressions of them, and I'll talk about them in my order of preference. Although this week, it's really hard to do that because 4 of the 6 are all kind of in a 4-way tie for my favorite of the week. I can't really decide between them. They're all in my excellent tier. There weren't any near masterpieces or masterpieces this week, but 4 of these are excellent, and the other 2 I'm going to mention are very good. So the 4 that I'm going to talk about that are excellent are Dilemma with the Purpose Paradox, Circuline with C.O.R.E or C.O.R.E, Haven of Echoes with Memento Vivere, and Giant Walker with Silhouettes. So let's start with Dilemma, the Purpose Paradox. Again, all 4 of those albums I just mentioned are all vying for my favorite of the week. But Dilemma, the Purpose Paradox, this is the 3rd album by this Dutch band, Dilemma. It's neo-progressive rock with pop and metal influences in there. This band features Christopher Gildenlow on bass, who was formerly the bass player of the amazing band Pain of Salvation. The single from Dilemma's new album called I Am Neon was great. That's what got me to add this to my list to check out. From the description of that YouTube video for that track, they accurately describe it and their sound by saying this track shows the heavier, sometimes even gentish side of Dilemma, perfect for fans of bands like Dream Theater, Toto, Vola, Marillion, Neil Morse Band, Spock's Beard, Threshold, Pineapple Thief, Porcupine Tree, Frost, and IQ. I think if you think about all those bands mixed into a mixing pot, that kind of describes the sound of this band in general. Most of the other songs on this album from Dilemma aren't as heavy as the song I Am Neon. Most of the songs don't incorporate djent or anything like that. They're not even really metal at all. Most of them are more accessible, kind of catchy, poppy arena rock anthems, but they have progressive compositions behind them with odd time signatures, excellent musicianship. The track Allies features Derek Sherinian, the amazing former keyboard player of Dream Theater, and Thunder is a solid, catchy ballad track. And then the closing track, Outer Light, is a prog epic that's over 15 minutes long. Spotify also features an instrumental version of this album as a bonus disc as well. So check out Dilemma and their album, The Purpose Paradox, if that sounds good to you. Next up, I'm going to talk about Circuline and their album C.O.R.E or C.O.R.E. This is the 3rd album by this American band, and it's progressive rock. And for this one, I heard the single Tempus Horribilis ahead of time, and I enjoyed that, so I added it to my list to check out. There's very unique and quirky sounding female lead vocals here with male backing vocals. And I also saw that Circuline features Shelby Logan Warren of Kairos on bass. And since I really enjoyed the Kairos release from earlier this year, that got me even more excited for this. The whole album is reminiscent of classic 70s progressive rock like Yes and King Crimson, but with female vocals, so maybe also for fans of Renaissance. It also reminds me a bit of the release from earlier this year by Circe Link and Christian Nesmith. So check it out if you like those artists. That's Circuline with C.O.R.E. They spell it out just like C.O.R.E. So I don't know if I'm supposed to say C.O.R.E. or say the abbreviation, but I'm just going to call it C.O.R.E. for short. Next up, I'm going to talk about Haven of Echoes with their album Memento Vivere. This is the 2nd album by this German band, and it's very atmospheric, cinematic progressive rock. It's got some post-rock influences as well as some metal influences in there. Now, I thought the debut album by this band from 2022, The Indifferent Stars, was an excellent album. Memento Vivere continues that excellence. They only have 4 tracks here, but it's 48 minutes long. The opening track, Non Sum Non Kuro, is a 17-minute prog epic, and the third track, It Walks Among Us, is a 14-minute prog epic. So two of the four tracks here are like really long tracks. While they're a German band, their lyrics are in English. Their vocals are fairly high-pitched, male vocals, but they are clean, catchy, and solid. The whole album has a nice atmosphere, but there's some parts where the guitars get pretty crunchy and they sounds like metal music without getting too extreme. And then my last one in my excellent tier for this week is Giant Walker and their album Silhouettes, the second album by this band from the UK. And this is kind of progressive metal, maybe gent, but it's also more leaning towards the alternative metal, hard rock, and grunge influences as well. For this one, I heard the single Silhouettes ahead of time, and I love the powerful female vocals over progressive metal music. The music here is not overly complex. It focuses on really complementing the vocals and the song. If you're a fan of Sordid Pink, who was previously called Destiny Potato, or the band Relica, or even Paramore, you might like this because it's all female, clean vocals. It's all very accessible and catchy and nearly pop, but the music is metal with great riffs and syncopation. So check out Giant Walker and Silhouettes if that sounds good to you. Now I'll mention a few that didn't quite make it to my excellent tier, but I have in my very good tier. First one I want to mention is Unto Others and their album Neverland, the third album by this American band. It's heavy metal with gothic rock, post-punk, pop, and doom metal influences. I thought their last album, Strength from 2021, was good, but it didn't quite cross into my very good tier. But for this album, I heard the single Butterfly ahead of time, and the melodies are just really catchy, and I like the production and the sound of the twin lead guitars. Unto Others here is like a very slowed down Iron Maiden sound with like gothic typo negative influence vocals, but with really catchy pop sensibilities in the songwriting. Check this out if that sounds good to you. It's 99% clean vocals, but there is one track, Flatlines, where he lets out a scream, and it's this awesome, intense surprise. And they end the album with a cover of a song by the Ramones called Pet Sematary, like the Stephen King movie, which is really well done. I think this is even better than their last album, Strength, and even better than their EP, Strength 2 Deep Cuts, which were both good releases. This album by Unto Others crosses over into my very good category, and I hope to see them take another step forward and improve even more on their next release. And I'm really interested to see what they do next because it's a cool band for sure. And lastly, I'm going to talk about Nightwish and their album Yesterwynde, also in my very good tier. The 10th album by this Finnish band. It's symphonic metal with power metal, folk metal, and gothic metal influences. I've liked some of the past material from Nightwish, but I'm not a big fan of theirs or of the symphonic metal genre in general, but they're a big name, so I wanted to check this out. I thought their last album, Human to Nature, was pretty average sounding symphonic metal album. It was okay to listen to, but just nothing special for me and a little long. This album, Yesterwynde, is shorter unless you listen to both the standard album and the orchestral version of the album. Like how Isan did earlier this year, Nightwish here has both the metal version with distorted guitars and the orchestral version of the album on Spotify. Now, I thought this was a notable step up from their last album, but still not something that's going to cross into my excellent tier or even make my top 150 albums of the year or anything like that. It's one of those albums that's enjoyable while it's on, but then you forget about it. Some riffs were good, but the guitar parts didn't really stand out to me. Some of the vocals were good, but nothing was too memorable. The best parts are probably the symphonic orchestral parts that bring a lot of the epic sounds to the album. If that sounds good to you, then check out Nightwish and their album Yesterwynde. And that's all for what I listened to that came out on September 20th, 2024. I've only given these all 2 listens through so far, so these are just first impressions rather than full reviews and my opinions on these might change. Some of these albums might grow on me even more and I'll like them even more. Some might kind of fall and or I'll never go back to, or maybe if I listen to them even more, I'll find them more irritating and like them less. Only time will tell kind of how these albums rise and fall within my favorites of the year. So if you like this content and want to hear about new metal, rock, and prog albums when they come out, definitely hit that subscribe button. Next week, for September 27th, I plan to listen to the Black Dahlia Murders' new album Servitude, Serge Tankian's new EP Foundations, a new release by the band Drugs called Until God Shows, Steve Howe's releasing Guitarscapes, Weather Systems releasing Ocean Without a Shore. If you want to see my first impressions for that in about a week's time, definitely hit that subscribe button. And at the end of the month, I'll post my top 10 favorite albums of September. Stay tuned for that, and peace out.